The line between being a good guy and a bad guy, or if we take it, let's go a little further. The line between being a hero and a villain is actually razor thin. It's much smaller than everybody thinks that it is, and everybody tries to pretend that it is. So we're going to tease a couple of things apart first. First, we have the hero, the good guy, right? You can't be the hero without being a good guy. The problem is they're trying to teach everybody nowadays that the good guy is the nice guy. That's the good guy. The good guy is harmless. That's a good guy. He's harmless. He has no intent nor or ability to impose violence on anyone or anything at any time. That's the good guy. That is not true. That is a weak man. That is a very, 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 very weak man. In order to become a good man, you have to be a strong man. A strong man has boundaries. He's very serious about his boundaries, and he's able to enforce those boundaries at any moment in time. In order to be a strong man, you have to be able and willing to do whatever is necessary in order to protect yourself, protect others, and enforce your boundaries, right? So we have to tease those apart. The good man is not the nice guy and the harmless guy. That is a weak man. In order to be a good man, you need to be a strong man. Only a strong man can become the hero. If we look on the other side, we have this idea, we have this concept that as soon as somebody does something that's evil or wrong or bad, we immediately try to ascribe these levels of cowardice and weakness to them. But that's actually really not true. Oftentimes, in order for somebody to become a really good villain in a story, he has to be a strong man. I'm not saying that they don't do acts of cowardice. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is their ambition is strong, their boundaries are strong, their ability to enforce their boundaries are strong, their abilities to go after the things that they want are strong. Now, the line that separates these two things is actually really small. It's really thin. And it's basically circumstance. Now, I'm not trying to tell you guys that it's not a larger complex thing. I'm just boiling it down to the simplest idea possible, simplest concept possible so we can have an easy conversation about it. It's actually just circumstance that separates the good guy, the hero, from the bad guy, the villain. The good guy, the strong man, the hero, at some point has learned to live in service to either something greater than himself or in service to others. And he's willing to do anything and everything that's necessary in order to protect others or to serve the thing that's greater than himself. The bad guy, the villain, he's still just living in service to himself. It's a selfish lifestyle. So he's willing to do anything and everything that's necessary in order to meet his needs, wants, and demands. That's what he's concerned with. That's really what it boils down to. If we take everything that's highly complex, just boil it down to a simplest idea and a simple concept so we can have a simple conversation, it's circumstance. At some point, this man on this side, the good guy, the strong good guy, learned to live in service to something other than himself. The bad guy, the evil man, he never did. So we have this idea, right? I like the movie, if we're going to use stories, I like the movie The Magnificent Seven. If you haven't seen it, it's got Denzel Washington as the lead. That should tell you everything you need to know about the movie right then and there. It's obviously going to be a good movie. It's a Western, and in my inexpert opinion, Tombstone and The Magnificent Seven are probably the best modern day Westerns made. As far as just like, cinematography, acting, and all that stuff. Anyways, The Magnificent Seven. It starts off with these guys that are having a meeting in a church. And they're having a meeting about the villain of this story, who's a man by the name of Bogue. Now, they're talking about the things that they should, could, and wouldn't, and better not do in this conversation. All of a sudden, the door flies open, in walks Bogue. He walks in like he's king of the castle, and he has a small contingent of the massive army of men that he seems to have at his disposal. And they all come in and they're armed. And I don't think you were even supposed to wear guns to the church, period. But either which way, these men do not seem to be armed, and they were not even the kind to like the cowboys, what they called being healed. They didn't walk around with guns on their hips. I'm sure they had guns in their homes for protection and stuff like that, but they weren't trying to be cowboys. Anyways, Bogue walks in, his contingent of men surrounds the guys in the congregation. He goes straight to the front of the congregation and starts having a conversation with these people. Not even a conversation. He's telling them what's what. At a certain point in this part of the movie, he looks over and there's a boy sitting in the congregation or one of the pews, and he's sitting there with his father, and he's like, "Come here, boy. Come on over here. Come on over here right now." So he's calling him up. Now this boy is young and he's confused and he's scared. So he looks to his father, who he's sitting with, because this is the man he's supposed to learn everything about being a man from. So it's not just about what you guys think, like morals, integrity, all that shit. Like there's a whole lot more that what you're supposed to learn from a man. Now, this man, his father, who is also scared, confused, not sure what to do, tells his son right there, go on, go up there. Right? So the boy obeys. Now, right then and there, he gave his son the lesson. Obey the stronger man and don't cause any problems. Don't cause no trouble and just obey the stronger man. So he sent his boy right up there into the arms of the devil himself. In their world, this man is the devil himself, and he sent his boy right up into that man's arms. Not one person, not one man in that congregation stood up and said, absolutely not. Sit back down. Don't touch our children. Don't come in here like you own this. Now, granted, this is the whole point of this thing. It's a tricky scenario because they do not appear to be armed in any way, form, or fashion. And the men that are surrounding them are not only all armed, but they're obviously all killers as well. And that's the whole point of this, what I'm talking about. The separation between a good man, a strong man, the hero, and between the villain is actually razor thin. These were weak men that were sitting in that congregation. So that's what he teaches his son. Go up there, obey the stronger man, and go up there and don't cause any problems. So later on in the movie, all hope is lost, blah, blah, blah. Into the town walks the Magnificent Seven. Now I want to make sure you understand, in case you haven't seen it or it's been a long time, or just to get the point across, these men were not kind, they were not gentle, they were crude, they were crass, and they were killers. All of them, except for Denzel, I believe, probably had some kind of bounty on their head, but all of them had done bad things, even Denzel. So yeah, were these the kind of guy that you really think about wanting your daughter to bring home? No, not really. That's not what we're teaching today. You know what I mean? That's not what you want. But they were men who knew how to fight. That's the key difference right there, right? They were wolves, and they were not raised to serve. Even Denzel's character, when you learn his story by the end of the movie, he wasn't raised to serve. But these were people that were choosing to serve. They weren't bound by law. They were bound by the concept of serving something greater than themselves or serving others. Now, other people might be like, well, it was justice, it was all this. But if you boil it down to what they were doing, there's even a line in the movie for a moment where one of the men says, living in service to others and surrounded by such great men to do it, such good men to do it. He was like happy as he could be in that moment. Now, he was surrounded by good men because they were choosing to serve something greater than themselves. He says it right then and there. Now, the problem is in today's comfort culture, the culture that we're living in right now, they're trying to tell you guys that these are dangerous men, which is true. They are dangerous men. But in order to be a good, strong man, and in order to be the hero, you have to be a dangerous man. You have to be willing and able to impose violence against those that are willing to impose violence either against you or that which you serve. You have to meet violence where it meets you. Weak men cannot do that. They try to teach us that these are dangerous men, right? But in this particular instance, they're not a danger to other people. They're danger to the people that want to hurt other people. Now, a lot of times that's the case, right? That's where it's going to come from. That's where it's going to stem from. I come from a very impoverished area that's gang infested, and I learned to live by those rules. So the morals that I was basically, if we boil everything down to a simple concept, the morals that I was given at such a young age is by any means necessary. So you have to get your needs, wants, and demands met by any means necessary. Nobody's coming to help. Nobody's going to give you a handout. It's not going to get any easier. It's very difficult to get out of the fucking hood. Plain and simple. If you want out, by any means necessary. And a lot of people lose their lives living by that code. So it's obvious that that code is real. Whether they get killed down murdered in cold blood in the middle of the streets by running up either against a force that was greater than theirs, or just by, bad luck, that happens. I think Nipsey Hussle is probably a really good example of that. That was just not, just wasn't his day, unfortunately. Or they end up by any means necessary. They do whatever they got to do, and then they end up in prison for the rest of their lives, often at a very young age, or whatever happens. The point is, it is obviously true that there are environments that exist that we learn to live by any means necessary, and that we do whatever it takes. Now, sometimes some of us escape. And just because we escaped the hood doesn't mean we learned any lessons. We didn't have any course correction. Doesn't mean that that's what happened. I escaped the hood. Now I'm around normal civilians. You guys are not ready for somebody like me. I was running a fucking muck and imposing my will any place and every place that I chose to, because you guys were not prepared for somebody like me. You guys that live in a suburban utopia, that are raised to believe that violence is where we've evolved past that, and you should be a nice guy and a harmless man and therefore weak. Running right over you motherfuckers. Now, we all have to have some sort of course correction. So there's plenty of people that learn at a younger age. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody veers over into the other side. I'm not saying that that is the case. But we can even use Jesus as an example. Apparently, there's a story where as a very young boy, he pushed another young boy off of a roof or something like that, and he got his course correction early in life. And a lot of people, that happens as well. Something's going on, they have a good mentor, they have a good dad, they have a good older brother, they have good men around that teach them like, hey, listen, that's not what we're really about, and this is why, and this is what you should be doing. Sometimes the course correction comes early in life, but that's not always the case. I was not one of those individuals. My course correction had to come later in life as a man, and they had to be very severe. I spent 18 years in prison to get my course correction. So when those people come from those environments, and they especially, or they just learn it on their own, you can come from a really good environment and also be a person who only cares about their own needs, wants, and demands, and are willing to do anything for it. So they teach you that dangerous men are bad men, but that's not the truth. In order to be a good man, you have to be a dangerous man. You have to be willing and able to meet violence where it meets you. So I like this idea that's in the movie, and I hate to even ruin the line for you because it hit me hard when I was watching it. But I was watching that movie as an allegory to today, not for back then. And he was like, if God did not want them to be sheared, he would not have made them sheep. So shearing is when you take the wool from a sheep. You know, sheep are just used for anything and everything. And when they're all used up, they're either sacrificed, like in the old biblical days, or they're eaten, they're taken, they're killed for their meat, whatever it takes to survive. You utilize the sheep to survive. That's all sheep are for, is to take advantage of and utilize to survive. For the stronger to utilize to survive. Whether you're thinking in real sheep for the humans that own them and herd them and keep them, or if you're thinking in the terms of the analogy that we're using. What society refuses to understand is that the only thing that protects the sheep from the wolf is another wolf who remembers why and how he has teeth, and how to use them, and then chooses to use them for something better than just himself. So that is the truth. Sheep cannot protect sheep from sheep. Now we have this concept of, the sheepdog and wolves and stuff like that. But the point is that even sheepdogs are able to impose violence upon wolves. So you have to be able to meet violence where violence meets you is the point. So I like that idea when he says that, right? And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Now, the problem is that here in today's world, people are pretending that we've evolved past violence. And that if they just make you specifically, while they're raising you, basically neutered, that we'll get past violence in totality. But evil has not changed. Evil has not evolved. Selfishness has not evolved. People that are only worried about themselves or trying to get their needs, wants, and demands met, whether it's for a completely selfish purpose or somebody who's just trying to get the fuck out of the environment that they're in. That hasn't changed. Those environments haven't changed. We have not evolved past fucking violence. That is not the case. Even for those of you that have grown up in a suburban utopia, that doesn't mean that the world is a suburban utopia. There are many people that are still just as hungry, just as bold, just as dangerous, and just as brutal as ever before. We just got better at hiding it behind laws and lawsuits, behind screens and slogans, behind men that teach, behind women especially, but definitely men nowadays, unfortunately, as well, that teach their sons, do what he says and don't cause trouble. Obey the stronger man and don't cause trouble, because that's how you stay safe. You cannot raise, please tune in right here. I want you to understand this very seriously. You cannot raise boys to obey cowards or live as a coward and still expect them to be protectors. You cannot sterilize masculinity because you think it's toxic and still expect masculinity to stand up when the wolves and the bad guys come. You cannot kill the instinct to fight in young boys and young men and then cry that no one answers your calls for help. That's what they're trying to teach nowadays, however, though. If they neuter you, then the rest of the world will follow suit. And that's just not the way this works, man. Most of us there's more people than not grow up in a position to where they have to learn by any means necessary. More people than not in this world learn that rule very early and never get past it. The Magnificent Seven weren't saints, but they were good men. They were good because they decided to stand between good and evil when the moment came. They stood between, they were the barrier between the evil man and his warriors and his needs, wants, and demands, and the innocent that couldn't protect themselves on the other side. That's the difference between a good man, a strong man, and a hero, and a bad guy and a villain. Both of them are often just as strong. We like to ascribe these ideas of them just being cowards and weak. Do they do cowardly things? Yes, they do. I'm not saying that that never happens, but these are also very strong men. They do not get to the positions that they're in by being weak men. They do not get to the position that they're to the position of being able to impose their will on other people by just being weak. That is not true. Both sides are very strong men. You can only overcome the other by being a strong man. So you have to start asking yourself, first, if you're raising sons, are you raising them to be the one who walks through the door while everybody hides behind it? Or are you raising them to be one of the people that hides behind the door? If you're already, that's if you're raising sons. Women probably are not going to understand this at all. Women want to protect their boys from all the bad things in the world instead of preparing them for all the bad things in the world. So when the bad things meet protected boys later on in life, they're not prepared for those things. Women raise boys. That's why you have all these men that are in extended adolescence. They're just boys for the rest of their lives because they were protected from the bad things that could happen in the world rather than being prepared to meet them where they have to meet them. These guys were good guys because even if it cost them everything, they chose to stand as the barrier between evil and innocent. So you have to ask yourself, not only if you're raising children, are you raising them to be the one that walks through the door or not, but also if you're already older. Most of the people that are probably going to be watching this video, you're probably already older and you're probably, early 20s, somewhere like that, but you could even be in your 30s and 40s and still be lost, and you're probably lost, and you're trying to figure things out and trying to figure out who you should be. The truth is you have to train yourself. If you've been trained, if you've been indoctrinated to be a weak and nice man, if you've been trained to be harmless, it's on you now to break that mold. You have to do it. Now you can find a mentor that lives that way. A mentor who's either been on the wrong side and came over to the other side, finally learned the lessons that they needed to learn, or even a good man that was just raised as a good man. He got all his course corrections as he was early, became a police officer, a firefighter, doesn't matter. Some way, form, or fashion, he's serving a community and something that's larger than him and his own life. And you can find a mentor on either side. It doesn't matter, but that's already living that life and they can give you all the lessons and stuff like that. But the truth is it's on you to do 100% of that work to make sure that you break that mold. You have to break that idea. You have to kill it. Now, for some of you, you've just been pushing that monster down. You've just been pushing that monster down. You've just been pushing that monster down. So it'll be a lot easier for those of you that have just been doing that to let that monster out when the time comes. But you still do not have the control over that monster because you've never really faced it. I like the way Jordan Peterson said it. You should become a monster and then learn how to control it. That is a fact. Now, down in the description, I'm leaving a very simple guide for you to build a warrior's routine. There's no course. There's nothing like that. You can copy and paste the damn thing, print it, put it up on your wall. I don't care. Screensaver, whatever you want. You can ask me any question you want. I'll answer them. I can do, if you guys want me to do videos on the stuff that I'm leaving in there, you can also do that. But in the description is a very simple guide to building a warrior's routine so that you can bring the warrior out of yourself. You will never be the hero if you are not a strong man. It is a strong man that makes a good man. That is also why you have so many women. We all see the videos. All these women that have really great guys that they're divorcing because they're not strong, good men. They're actually weak men, and nobody respects a weak man. They're like, yeah, he works a lot, he does this, but they know when the shit hits the fan, you don't have any boundaries. You won't even protect your boundaries from her. How are you gonna protect your boundaries from another man? If you can't even protect your boundaries, how are you gonna protect her as a woman? How are you gonna protect your home? How are you gonna protect your kids? You do not have that ability because you are a weak man. You are a nice guy and you're a harmless guy, which means you're weak. So these are the things that you have to figure out. You want to be the hero in your own life? You're going to have to become a strong man in order to become a good man so that you can become the hero. And do not believe that villains and bad guys are weak, cowardly, and all that other shit. Like I said, man, the fucking line between the bad guy and the good guy and the evil guy and the evil guy and the good guy and the villain and the hero is actually razor thin. And we boil it down to its simple concept. It's just circumstance. Have you learned to live in some service to something greater than yourself? That means even if you're a weak man, you want to live in service to something greater than yourself, then you have to learn to be strong to live in service to that thing. A weak man is not living in service to a fucking thing. He's living in service to nothing. You are of no service. You are of no good to anybody as a weak man. So you have to learn how to break that fucking mold. You can go down in the description, copy and paste it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Just recognize, in order to become the hero of your own life, you have to become a strong man to become a good man.